Hello, my name is Ashley Davis and I will be talking about designer babies. So what is a designer baby? According to Google, a designer baby is a baby whose genetic makeup has been selected in order to eradicate a particular defect or ensure that a particular gene is present. And the purpose of it is to try to prevent inheriting gene defects by selecting disease-free embryos, by pre-implantations, genetic diagnosis. Then this could prevent diseases like cystic fibrosis. So who is the first designer baby? Well, Adam Nash was born in 2000 and he is the first designer baby. He was born using in vitro fertilization with pre-implantation genetic. So the reason that this all came about was because of his sister. His sister needed some stem cell therapy. She had Fanconi anemia. And Fanconi anemia can affect things like organ defects and can cause higher risk of certain cancers. So she needed things from his body, and Nash, he was tested multiple times for Fanconi anemia. And Fanconi anemia is actually a recessive trait in the parents, and she happened to have it. So the stem cells in his umbilical cord could save his sister's life from Fanconi anemia. So the two cells that could be edited for gene editing or just editing in general is somatic cells and germ cells. Now, somatic cells, they are already a specific type of cell, like liver or lung cell. They do not change into anything else. You can't change it to be something else. It's already the cell that it is. And somatic cells, they cannot be passed on to other offsprings or other generations. It only affects the person that the procedure is done in. Now, germ cells, they are egg or a sperm cell. Now, these change whole bodies. Usually, these are done at the embryo level. Well, they can be done at the embryo level. And germ cells, they can be passed on to offsprings and future generation for more and more to continue on that specific gene. Now, germ cell editing is also known as embryo manipulation. Implanting a CRISPR-modified embryo in human is illegal in some places, and it is a controversial procedure because it changes physical traits. Now, what I mean by changing physical traits, let's say I have two of my parents, they have a homozygous gene for brown eyes, and so that would be capital B for both of them. I, myself, will have brown eyes. Now, let's say they went through embryo manipulation for me. They wanted me to have blue eyes. That would mess up the brown eye gene pool down the line. Now, my kids probably would not have brown eyes because in that embryo manipulation, they changed my gene trait of going to have brown eyes to blue eyes. So some of those pros and cons is for pro, lower risk of genetic diseases, lower risk of inherited medical issues, growing understanding of genetics. Now, I think it is a great idea to have gene editing to take away those genetic diseases, to make future generations a lot healthier than what they were before. And now for the cons, deletion of embryos. If you're trying to change one gene or embryo, you could delete a whole nother section that you weren't supposed to. You're like, oops, didn't mean to, but it happened because you're messing with DNA and not everything can be perfect. And then next is gap in society. Now, what we mean by a gap in society, let's say you can change the intelligence of the child that you are gene editing. Let's say we want our child to be smart, go to Harvard, go to all the smart schools, and do a really smart person job sort of say. And now we just have people that were gene edited. They're not going to be on the same level as that child that wants to be that, for that child that's going to be the perfect child and do everything and know everything and be smart to the other child. So there's going to be a kind of gap there. It also can damage the gene pool. Like in my example, if my parents changed my eyes to blue, the brown eye gene pool would just be done for the rest of the generations unless I still have a big B or some sort of allele B, brown B in my gene. And then another one is no choice. You are giving that child no choice of what they want to be, or more so say what they will look like. Even though it's not a child's choice of what they're going to come out looking like, you are selecting the looks of your child. And I don't think that's pretty fair, because the way that we look is really done by nature and just how our genes flow throughout generations. And then the next one would be only the rich could afford. Everything on this world costs money, and procedures, especially surgeries or medical procedures, they cost a pretty penny. Now, only the rich will be able to, because they can afford it. So I don't think it would be fair to say that only people that can afford it will be able to do it. That's saying only the rich will have the choice of having that standard perfect child that we have, that we picture in our society today. Now, this picture, I really love it because it shows how people that do not agree with gene editing see what it is. So basically, these parents are window shopping for their for a child. Like, do they want an actor? Do we want a cartoonist? And in that little box it says, do we want a tech tycoon or a tax lawyer? See, these are the kind of things that is like, why do we need to change some of the stuff that our child is going to be? Let's just let them come out naturally and be who they want to be, not you select what your child's going to look like. And also, as a whole, as humans as a whole, it could be a great thing for the future if we just use it to delete genetic diseases and anything that is harmful. And if we can completely delete it from a gene line going forward, it'd be amazing. But having to select different hair color, different eye colors, it may not be a good idea, because then everybody's going to want to choose those ideal traits that get a person a certain job or get a person the best job that they can. So from this article that I found in Ethical Challenges in Embryo Manipulation, the lady who wrote it, Mary, she had said, this knowledge can be used to diagnose genetic diseases or replace a defective gene with a functional gene. Both of these practices can reduce human suffering and diseases, but their misuse may create other problems. Gene therapy to attain qualities such as beauty or a good memory is impossible. Now, what I agree with in her statement was that it is a beautiful thing to want to get rid of all these genetic diseases in the growing communities and gene lines and families. But once we start getting a hold of, let's change these traits in these children so they can look a certain way, you can do it, but it's not going to be a good idea, because you cannot find beauty in just changing DNA just because you can. It's most likely not going to be a good thing going down the line. And then lastly, I just want to do a quick overview of my whole entire presentation. So what is a designer baby? It's a baby whose genetic makeup, genes, has been selected in order to eradicate a particular defect or to assure that particular gene is there and present, as if my parents want to choose blue eyes. I keep using blue eyes because I think it would be awesome to have blue eyes, but I love my brown eyes. I wouldn't change them for the world. And some other things that I found from gene editing techniques is that CRISPR has advanced genomic engineering, and DNA can be cut in the wrong places. That would be kind of one of the controversial things that I talked about before. And that is possible to treat genetic disorders, which I also talked about, which would be a great thing to delete it from going generations. But the cells that can be edited are somatic cells, which are not controversial because it only affects that one person that the procedure was done on, not future generations. And the next cell is germ cells, which can be passed on to future generations. So that is a very controversial decision. Now that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you very much.